there's a couple of articles that have popped up about uh, concerns about China's activity and level of threat. So there's all sorts of Senate estimates going on at the moment. So all sorts of people are making interesting comments and statements depending on who's being questioned at the time. So they see a deteriorating security outlook in the Indo-Pacific. It's probably nothing that's going to surprise anyone who's been paying attention to geopolitics in the Pacific or the Indo-Pacific. The rise in power of India in the Indian Ocean and the rise in power of China in the Pacific should not be a surprise to anyone. If it is, read more. Yeah, the live fire event in the Tasman Sea. We've talked about that before. Disruption to civil air traffic. Yeah, okay. There's about what's legal and what's professional, what's courteous, and what, um, uh, yeah, different purviews on it. Yes, they were entirely permitted to do what they did where they did it. It just would have been courteous to have notified civilian air traffic ahead of time that this was being planned so that they could make sure they stayed clear of the area. Now, it may be culturally appropriate for the Chinese in China to do this at late notice, but traditionally in Australian airspace, or where Australian aircraft tend to fly, these sort of live firing activities are well planned and notified well in advance. The NOTAMs, sometimes even ADPs, not ADPs. What's the name of them? They used to be on yellow paper. AIP? No, just trying to think what the circulars and SUPs used to come out for large military exercises and stuff. Live firing in designated firing airspaces or designated military ranges would generally just be notified by NOTAM, but that sort of stuff would be notified well in advance or planned. And if you'd been flying in those areas for any more than 12 months, you probably got a handle on the sort of annual exercise cycle or annual operation cycle. When there were major fleet build-up phases, when there were major ground army exercises, deployment cycles, but you get a feel for how often ranges would be activated and what sort of firings would go on. Australia's military isn't that big, and they tend to stick to planned exercises fairly well. So yeah, that sort of stuff would be fairly well planned in advance. Plus, it wouldn't just affect aviation. If you were doing stuff out over the water, you've got civil merchant traffic to worry about. You've got fishing fleets. You've got recreational traffic as well. There'd be notice to mariners as well, but in general, it's done as much deconfliction as possible and trying not to disrupt everybody else's use of the water space and airspace as much as possible. So, yeah, so whilst legally permitted, from a courtesy point of view, it was not very courteous. And while life unable to predict whether live fire drills will continue in Australian waters, and that's being a bit too conservative viewpoint. It should be expected. You can't stop it. I mean, depending on how you define Australia's waters or waters of interest, there may be complete things you don't even know that this stuff has gone on because there's no air traffic in the region or anything like that. They may be being tracked through various means, but they're it's quite possible that this entire thing's going on that's just not being known about because it's out of range of ground-based sensors or even the sensors that are available at the time. So, yeah, I mean, there's always been a concern. I mean, certainly since the turn of the 21st century, after China acquired the aircraft carrier that was nominally meant for a casino, um, and people who said they were going to refurb it and build their own were called crazy. A few years later, China's now sailing aircraft carriers around the place, plus the build-up of their submarine fleet and stuff. Like I said, prior to certainly in the 20th century, even to the late end of the 20th century, China was not seen as having anything other than maybe a green water navy, so largely coastal, not a blue water navy, so not a global force projection, not into the major oceanic projections. They were certainly still involved in the Spratlys and Johnson Atoll and the South China Sea, but it was not as active or had developed as far as it has now. And you look at what they deem Coast Guard vessels now, you're almost looking at cutters and large, almost frigate-size vessels with blue water capability that they're sending into the South China Sea. I mean, they class them as Coast Guard vessels, but yeah, it's like the US Coast Guard having Oliver Hazard Perry class frigates. They're not going to have SM-1s on board, but it still used to be a proper naval frigate. Now it's a coastie. But no, China certainly poured money into their military expansion. And it had been seen for many years that where they had these frontline modern capabilities, anything beyond that was largely conscript level, very poorly equipped, poorly manned, poorly maintained hardware. Whereas nowadays, no. They've managed to move things in depth. So yeah, I think that's definitely moved on. Plus, China developed their space capability and anti-satellite shots and everything else. So yeah, the idea that China's a growing threat or growing capability, let's go capability. If they're certainly seen as a threat by a number of nations, they're growing capability in the region. That should not be a surprise to anyone, nor should the idea that they're going to outpace other nations. I mean, I doubt that Australia's got the capability to take on China. Certainly not in terms of numbers. I mean, again, in the past, it was seen that China's territorial ambitions didn't extend much beyond Taiwan. Whereas nowadays, with their ability to project force, well, it might be a bit different. I remember it was a big thing, relatively big thing, back in the early mid-2000s when we had Chinese naval ships do port visits for the first time in Australia in a long time. That was seen as sort of like a waving the flag goodwill type sort of thing. Would they happen now? Oh, I don't know. Growing PLA assertiveness? No, they've been assertive for years. Look at what they've done in the South China Sea. So, so PLA assertiveness, yeah, expected. Yeah, grey zone harassment. China knows how to toe the line. Well, push the line. And then again, so does the US and everybody else. Is there going to be increased likelihood of interaction? Well, yeah, probably. You also look at the soft power that China's pushing through the Pacific and, well, everywhere they think they can have reach. It's going to be interesting. Primary risk was a confrontation between US and China. I don't know. It's more risky, not less risky. Well, if you've got one side continuing to arm up, well, at some point they're going to feel that they don't need to fear their opponents that much. Yeah, collaboration, etc. Blah 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 blah. Okay, what else? So that was coming out of Senate estimates. There's another article very similar to that. Okay, that's the video of it. That's not a problem. That's the same thing. And I dare say this is the same feedback, but different news source. Okay, so refusing to buy Chinese EVs for defence kind of makes sense, I guess. Blah, blah, blah. Yep, Senate estimates. Questioning threats. Uptake of EVs. Yep, not buying Chinese ones necessarily. No requirement to purchase Chinese-made vehicles. Interesting to see. So for Australian military decorations and whatnot, the fruit salad Australians wear or don't wear, the one you look for is this red and white striped one with black borders on it. That is they call it Australian Defence Medal. It's basically the lowest precedence honour that an Australian service member will get in terms of Australian honours and awards. So anything below that, so to the right or below, will be a foreign award. So in this case, this gentleman's got, this brigadier general has got a NATO medal, blue and white stripe there. So that's 30 days in Afghanistan during the Afghanistan conflict. Those two, one of them's I think Papua New Guinea time. They're like, these are all either foreign awards or subservient. He's got Parramatta medal, so long service medal. Operational service medals, active service medal. That is not. Don't know if that's a gallantry award or. The Naval Admiral back here has NATO medal, Australian Defence medal, long service medal, Iraq campaign medal, Operations Service medal. I think that's Legion of Merit, and then he's got a CSC above that. This Army gentleman here has an Order of Australia, maybe an AM, maybe more likely an AO. CSC, okay, we'll go back here. Yep, ADM, long service medal. I'm not sure what those do. One of those is potentially the civil support medal. Like there was an operational medal given out for defence support to the civil community, defence something or other civil community. Basically, the Brisbane floods a number of years ago and the fires around that same time frame. There were medals handed out for that. He's got a couple of. That's the. Is that his Iraq medal? I think that is. No, not Iraq. Iraq was Sandia. Is that the operational service medal? I think I'd have to go and look at the things again. But that's a CSC. That would be. I don't know. Don't recognise it. Yeah, so it's you can kind of tell a bit of service history from that, and that's a meritorious unit citation with star in the middle, and indicates that he was at the unit at the time when they undertook the actions that they received the citation for, and so he's entitled to continue wearing it after he's left the unit as well. And he's got is operational readiness badge, and that looks like the commando's badge as well. So he's army and parachute brevet as well. So presumably former commando at some point. All right. Anyway, sidetrack there. All right. Climate change concern, fair enough. The senator noticed that the 2023 Defence Strategic Review mentioned China 9 times, but climate change and climate events 17 times. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, depending on how you interpret. I've not read the 2023 Defence Strategic Review, but the idea that there are going to be global conflicts as geostrategic, potentially even military interaction based on climatic events is not anything new. I mean, it was being talked about again back at the turn of the century that there were going to be potentially water wars. People sort of looking more into Africa for things like that, or potentially, I mean, the big one is China, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, where China is believed to be considering damming one of the major headwaters coming out of the Tibetan Plateau that then flows down through India and Bangladesh, and I think also through Pakistan as well. But the problem is the terrain at the moment is believed to be too difficult to build a dam in and block the valleys that way. But you've got, well, over 1 billion people, maybe close to 2 billion people dependent on that water coming down through their nations. And if you have China then able to arbitrarily block that, and China doesn't have the population in the region that needs that water like that, you can imagine the worry that those downstream nations have if China is able to effectively dam the rivers, dam that water supply. I can't see. Well, I can see it potentially becoming a conflict. It certainly seems like one of the more realistic proposed conflicts. We'll see. I mean, Egypt's getting concerned about a dam being built on the upper reaches of the Nile. That's not part of Egypt because it allows other nations to control the flow and things like that. So, I mean, there's resource wars as well. I mean, there've been resource wars in the past. Access to, well, fresh water is a big one. Access to mineral resources. I mean, you could go back to World War II and cite Germany's Lebensraum. People have fought wars for living space for many, 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 many years. So, climatic and other demands, not a surprise. Is it more important than, or more significant than the perceived threat of China because it's now a major regional power and pushing for major global power militarily? I don't know. 2023, maybe. So it's moving on. I certainly got a question on handling of sexual, like there's concerns for things happening within defence about ongoing behavioural and professionalism issues. I'll skip past that because there's been royal commissions in the past. It's not that great. And then this was a bit funny, not funny. The idea that they produced a cookbook from within a group, and then, I mean, the cost was pretty low, $1,800. It's actually pretty decent for 150 books. But the priority of creating a cookbook, office cookbook for Harmony Week, okay, $1,800. That's almost petty cash. It's certainly not a huge amount given what guided weapons and explosive ordnance are expected to handle. In terms of if you're going to promote Harmony Day, if you're going to do things like that, I I I can see why the Senate is like, what the hell do you think you're doing? But at the same time, if you want to celebrate or recognise the diversity of your workforce, all the magic button words going on there, why not do something like this? It's a good PR thing. Well, until the Senate gets a hold of it, in which case it's now a bad PR thing. But to share recipes from your ethnic background or that have come to your families and things like that, it's whilst it's kind of funny and a bit weird that it's happened, I don't understand how a government that's nominally progressive is getting all up in arms about it. I mean, I can understand getting up in arms about the unnecessary expenditure of public monies, but it's $1,800. I mean, for 150 copies, that's what, $15 a copy? You could have paid for that. People could have paid for it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, only 40 pages. Okay, maybe if it's 140 pages, I might be a bit more interested in it. But yeah, it's yeah. Anyway, things are basically just a slightly different look on the same thing. And yeah, Senate estimates. It's a thing where, well, people who sit in front of it get grilled. It's actually pretty decent in terms of oversight, in terms of Australian politics. A lot of big news has come out of Senate estimates in the past, where people. I'm not 100% sure about how compelled you are to attend, if you've been summoned to attend or like you've been directed to attend. I don't 100% know about the legality, like whether it's a similar thing to, say, the US, where you're summoned in front of Congress and you can be jailed for lying to them or anything like that. Or held in contempt or anything like that. I don't know, but it seems to be the case that, well, the committee can hold your feet to the fire quite well, and they do.